What is up, gentlemen and ladies, theys and thems? Yoshi here, bringing you guys part 1 of my guide to Sadako Yamamura, better known as the Onryō in Dead by Daylight. She is a very basic, fundamental-based M1 killer that relies on a lot of mind games and generic killer fundamentals to get the most out of. She can play in a multitude of playstyles, the most popular of which seems to be her hit and run, but she can also play a very chase and mind game heavy playstyle, as I said before, and she has a very good mobility option that allows her to travel around the map and pressure multiple people at once. Now, real quick, some basic information on the killer. She is a 115 movement speed killer, meaning that she moves at 4.6 meters per second. She has a 24 meter terror radius, and when she is in her stealth mode, she has a 24 meter lullaby that is directional and proximity based. I will cover this more in the actual guide itself. The basics of her power is that when she starts the trial, she is demanifested, so she is undetectable. And to hit a survivor, you must manifest, so you uncloak out of your undetectable status, and then you can hit them. She has TVs around the map that you can teleport to. She has a condemnation mechanic that when filled, you can instantly mori a survivor. So she has a lot in her kit, and we're going to go in depth on a lot of these mechanics and how you can use them at a very basic beginner level. This is not going to cover any of her add-ons, as well as any perk builds to run on her. It is purely going to be the basics of what her power is, the different parts of her kit, the numbers behind them, and how they work, so that way you can go in there and start applying basic knowledge and using your fundamentals to get good at her core kit, and then tweak it with add-ons and the perk builds that you decide best fit your play style when you so choose that you are ready to push forward to the next level with the character. That being said, let's get right into the guide. We're going to start with talking about her television cooldown, and then we'll carry on from there. When spawning in at the start of the match as Sadako, you will have 7 TVs on the map, 1 for each generator, and they will be disabled for the first 30 seconds of the game. So if I walk over to this generator here, and I try to find wherever my television spawned, you will see that it's actually off, and you can also see at the bottom left corner where there's the power meter, that is how long it takes for the TV to actually turn on. And I can't seem to find it, but it's going to be on in a second. So the TV spawn for this generator, it was actually back here. Televisions spawn within 16 meters of the generators, so sometimes the spawns are a little bit wonky like that. I actually believe it was this one here, because that seems way closer. And sometimes they'll be a lot closer like this, whereas other times they'll be farther away like that one over there. And then other times they're actually outside of line of sight of the generator, like this one here. And knowing which direction the TV is facing when teleporting to it's really important, because it's really disorienting. Like so. Teleporting to a television takes 2.7 seconds for the television animation to actually finish, but it takes a total of 3 seconds because it takes 0.3 seconds for the server to actually register the teleport from you pressing the button. So that's 0.3, and then during the animation that's 2.7 seconds. So 3 seconds total to teleport, and for a survivor to actually gain a condemnation stack, you have to finish the entire teleportation animation. After teleporting out of the TV, she moves at 6.9 meters per second for 1.5 seconds. It's a nice little speed boost to help you catch people off guard. You can increase this with add-ons. So as you can see here, when looking at a television, it just plays this little white static effect. When a survivor walks within 16 meters of the television, while Sadako is also within 16 meters of the TV, that's when it begins to play the tape. You can walk in now. And as you can see, it starts playing the tape here, so that's when you know that when you teleport to said TV that the survivor will actually gain a stack of condemnation once the teleport animation is completely finished. And then the TV goes on cooldown. This applies to all televisions, and just to clarify, it is only when Sadako is also within range of the TV, not just when the survivor is within the range of the TV. So when Sadako is demanifested, she has the undetectable status effect, meaning that she has no tear radius as well as no red stain. And as you can see here, she is visibly flashing in and out of reality. This is only visible to survivors that are within 24 meters of her. If they're outside of the 24 meter range, she will be completely invisible. And if you enter the 24 meter range like so, they'll be able to see the visible flashes as well as hear a sort of screeching sound. It's very similar to Trickster and Huntress's lullaby, where even though she is undetectable, she still does have this lullaby, and you cannot hide it using Oblivious or Undetectable status effect. And it is also directional and proximity based, meaning the closer that you are to the survivor, the louder it is. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to catch people off guard with it, but there are ways to work around this that we will discuss later. Now, with this flash in mind, it has a 1.25 second intermediate cooldown, so she will be visible for 1.25 seconds and then invisible for 1.25 seconds, on and off. You can change this with add-ons, and then when she manifests or uncloaks, she slows down from 4.6 or 115% movement speed to 3.68 meters per second, and she flashes intermediately just like she did when she was invisible. During that time where she's flashing in and out after manifesting, it is the same rules that apply when she's demanifested, where survivors outside of 24 meters cannot see her during this flashing period of 4 seconds. But then once she is fully manifested and no longer flashing, she is just treated as a normal killer and they can see her at any distance. Now during this 4 meter flashing period, she flashes visible and invisible. She's visible for 1.5 seconds and then is invisible for 1 second while cloaked, but when uncloaked, she's visible for half a second and then invisible for 0.75 seconds. So it's a shorter period of time than when you're actually cloaked, but you can use this duration of flashing in and out to trick survivors, just like with Spirit's passive phasing, or with Old Freddy's sleep intermission period, and this can also be changed with add-ons. This allows for a lot of interesting mind games, as well as the potential to do a little technique that I like to call the invisible lunge. So there are many different kinds of mind games that you can do using your phase, but the main thing that you want to do is that you always want to take control of the palette, very similarly to the pig's crouching mind games, because when you are in the palette and the survivor is trying to select the side that they want to be on, this is where you get to do your little double backs and your double back fakes or your moonwalks and things like that. So for example here, I'm going to uncloak in the palette because they can't see me, and then I'm invisible, visible, invisible, visible, and you can get a hit like that. There are plenty of other things that you can do as well. One of my personal favorites is that when I uncloak, I stand still, and while standing still during that invisible period, they may think that you're double backing, in which case, I mean, you're actually just standing there. A lot of the time, a lot of people run into you because they expect you to actively do a mind game, so she can kind of do like the old Spirit thing there. So one other mind game that you can do is during this period after manifesting, where she's flashing in and out of reality, when you turn invisible, you can actually lunge. So you can do this sort of invisible lunge where survivors can't actually see what direction you're going in. And with the increased movement speed of a lunge, it makes it very hard to predict which way she's actually going to go, especially on shorter loops like this. It would be more ideal for you to have control over the palette, but if you ever have a situation where a survivor is sitting in a palette and not actually allowing you to make any mind games, it would be wise to try and take control of the shorter side of the loop, uncloak, and then lunge while you're invisible to try and hit them through it. So the next thing I'm going to go over is how the condemnation mechanic works. So the main way that survivors gain stacks is from you teleporting to your television. They have to be within 16 meters of the TV, and you have to finish the full 3-second teleport animation for them to gain 1 stack of condemned. And you can see the little ring icon around the HUD there showing that they have condemnation on them. This would get thicker the more condemnation progress that they have on them, but it is bugged at the moment. But you can actually still see the thick ring icons after they put their tapes away, so you can know how far along they were after dropping off their tape. So the other way that survivors can gain condemnation stacks is by taking a tape from the television. When they take a tape from a TV, they get +1 condemnation stack, just like if Sadako was to teleport to it. And then when they have said tape in hand, they will passively gain condemnation at a slow rate. It takes about 25 seconds while holding a tape to gain 1 stack, and that is only when Sadako is outside of 16 meters of the survivor with the tape after a short 6-second buffer. So as you can see, while the survivor is holding the tape and you and the survivor are within 16 meters of the TV, it actually does not play the tape on the television. That's because it is in their possession and not in the TV. So it takes 0.5 seconds for a survivor to turn a TV off while holding a tape, and it takes 2 seconds for them to take the tape out of the TV as well as drop it off. And when they drop the tape into the TV, they will lose 3 condemnation stacks. You need 7 to get the Mori. When they reach 7 stacks, you will see them on Killer Instinct for 6 seconds. And then when you down the survivor, you'll be able to instantly kill them. The tape destination, when a survivor actually grabs the tape from a television, is at minimum 32 meters away from their TV, which means that since that television has to be outside of 16 meters of another TV, it will never be the one directly next to them, but the next farthest one. So in a situation like this, where you have this television on the hill, this one here next to it, and then that one in the back, if theoretically it was the minimum distance and they took that tape from the hill there, this would be the closest possible TV for them to drop it off at, whereas the farthest possible TV would be at maximum 76 meters, so probably this one all the way over here, which is the ideal scenario. You want them to get the farthest spawn possible because it buys you more time and gets you more slowdown. And the way that you can actually guarantee this pretty consistently is by shutting off TVs close by the ones that they took their tape from. So if they do happen to take the tape from that hill, and you teleport to this TV as well as this one, yes, you're shutting them off for 100 seconds, but they also cannot drop their tape off in a TV that is off unless all of the reasonable drop-off spawns are shut off. So basically, if all of the other TVs on the map are off, then it would still pick the farthest one within the 76 meter range, unless, say, this one was on when that one was picked up, then it would guarantee that this one would be the spawn, since all of the ones that are further away are off. And that is going to conclude the Sadako guide, part 1 of the Sadako guide covering the basics of her kit. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope that you learned something new today, and I hope that this helped anybody who was maybe thinking that the killer was too difficult for them to get into, or might not be their cup of tea, or haven't even purchased the DLC yet. I hope it's convinced you to give her a try. and that you now understand the basics of the killer and can go out there and start getting some 3 and 4Ks and start winning your games. As I said before, I'm not covering add-ons or perk builds in this video. I'm going to save those for later videos. So after this guide covering the basics, I will do an add-on guide. In that video, what I plan to do is have a tier list of her add-ons, basically, and then cover the add-ons individually, showing what they do visually on both her side and the survivor side when needed, and go in depth on the numbers behind them and how they actually affect her power. And in the tier list aspect, we'll go over which ones are her best and her worst ones and why. So that one's going to be a lot more in depth. I consider this one to be like the beginner guide, the definitive beginner guide for Sadako, whereas that one is going to be more like an intermediate level guide where it's going to go more in depth on use these add-ons in combination to create a different play style. Then after that video, I want to put out the perk build video, which I'm going to have to wait until the new patch comes out and take a little while to actually experiment with different perks on her. I've already been doing so. You can actually see some of the funky builds that I've been running in the background footage here for the intros and the outros. So I'm going to be doing a lot of experimenting once the patch hits to try and find both fun builds and optimal builds to play her with. And then once I'm 100% confident in my ability with what her meta is going to be, because I do believe her meta is different from other killers at a more in-depth level. Of course, you can always slap Force Slowdown on and do just fine, but that goes for any killer. I mean more so for her unique perks, like how I'm All Ears is on Pyramid Head. I believe she gets use out of certain other perks using her playstyle, and that would be what I want to go more in depth with in the perk section. So once I get to experimenting with that patch a little bit, then I will gladly put out the perk video, and then after that the final video is going to be a video going super in depth on the condemnation mechanic and how you can get consistent condemnation kills almost every game, and certain builds that you can use to get multiple in a game or get them really early on in a match and use the condemnation mechanic to snowball. I feel like people misunderstand this aspect of her kit very much, so I really want to go in depth and explain exactly how it works and how you can use it to the best of your ability, and that it's not as weak as people think and she's not as weak or as easy to play as people think. So again, thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Please share it around to anybody that has any interest in Sadako or even doesn't think that the killer is very good. I hope that this beginner tutorial for her helped a lot, and I will see you all in the next one when we cover add-ons. I'm not sure exactly when it'll come out, but I promise I will start working on it as soon as this video is out. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your patience. This has been a very different project compared to what I'm used to working on. It's been a very long and difficult process, but I'm glad to finally have it out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a wonderful day.